Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Hello, and hello. Yes, hello to you, hello to your mother. Boys, girls, and everyone with sex organs. It's me, Mariel, your hostess with the mostess. Your guide into the swampy, nasty jungles of sex and sexuality. You're currently listening to the GSMC Sex Podcast, and if you find yourself on the wrong podcast accidentally, stay a while. You just might learn something. I know that I'm learning something. Every single episode I learn something, which is fun. It's like a fun little thing for me. So let's talk about sex, shall we? How are we doing today? How are we feeling? I know that I'm feeling like we're all burning in hell. I don't know if I believe in hell, but it feels like we're in it. If it exists, it's here. It's like everywhere around us is like in the West Coast where I am in California. Especially in the West Coast, it's like everything is burning up in flames. And it's just awful. Today we're talking about fanfic. You like that transition? I'm trying to stay more positive because our world is burning up. And today I wanted to do something that would be really fun, like fan fiction. And I knew that people would want to listen to this because fanfiction's wild. Like, fanfiction, first and foremost, is about, like, fan written content in a war, in like Star Trek, Star Wars, like, Indiana Jones, if you will. Like, it's basically, fan fiction is like people writing books or like manuscripts or poems, or they're mainly stories about characters, taking the creative liberties, essentially. I remember when I was, I don't even know, like 17 years old, and my friend had passed me this book, and it was called like Love Affair or like Sex on Fire. It probably wasn't like Sex on Fire, but it was like something like very beautifully written, like a very beautiful title. Originally, I didn't really know about smut when I was like 16, 17, 18 years old. It just really wasn't, I mean, like, yes, when I was 18, but like when I was like 16 and 17, kind of starting to develop my interests in sexuality and like what I liked and what I didn't like, smut was definitely not something that was like, I was so excited to, because I really didn't like reading. But then when my friend had given me this book, which was like so erotic, like it was so erotic, like some of the passages would be like this beautifully written content, like, he thrust inside of me, and it was never vulgar, it was never like super hardcore, like it was never like that. It was always like, the idea of making love, back when I was 17, loved that idea of like making love. Like, little did I know that I would become like the biggest hoe in like the West Coast, but who cares? I just remember reading it and being like, this is amazing. Making love, them two together. Oh my God. This is exquisite. And I would read it everywhere. I mean, I wouldn't like, it's like, yes, it's like it's a drama, but it's also a smut because it's very, like, it involved sex in like every single chapter, but it wasn't explicit. And a lot of fanfic is erotic. You know, it has erotic moments. Like, we'll get into like the themes of it and like, or the genres, I should say, the genres of each of the fanfic. But I didn't really know about fanfic when I was younger. All I knew about was like smut and smut books, but like fanfic, everything stems basically from fan fiction. Like, there's a lot of things that stem from fan art and like fan fiction of like popular pieces, popular like TV shows, movies, and stuff like that. Like, smut is a part of fan fiction, but it's not the entire thing, but it is a good portion of it, because who doesn't want to like read about your two favorite characters who are not getting it on the show but getting it on fanfic? Like, who doesn't want to read that? I could think of so many things just right off the bat. But anyways, a few years after I read this, fanfic, I realized something I completely overlooked in my childhood. Like, it really wasn't in the stratosphere in what I read was fan fiction, because everyone in my school wasn't necessarily reading fan fiction. They were reading like, I don't even know, like beautiful novels and like education, and I was just over here like, hey, I have a cool smut book. It's about a guy and a gal getting it on, and like, you don't tell people that. Like, it's just, it feels kind of embarrassing, but little did I know that there was this entire world out there of fan fiction that I knew absolutely nothing about. I must have been so damn blind, or I just must have completely pretended that I did not see. Like, it must have completely went over my head that there was a whole world out there of people writing fan fiction between Harry Styles and Liam Payne from One Direction, and I had no idea. I wasn't really into One Direction, but I still would have liked to read a gay erotica fan fiction. Hell yeah. That sounds amazing. But anyways, like most things, I overlooked it. I completely overlooked it. But fan fiction writers really can marry any kind of things that you can even think about, like the world of Star Trek and Twilight together. They can be completely married in an erotic and also not an erotic way, but it would be better if it was erotic. I don't know, I just like erotic fiction. It's honestly a place where all of your dreams can come true. If you want erotic fan fiction writing about your favorite actor from House and your favorite cartoon like Winnie the Pooh or something, boom. You can search it up and you will find it. I can guarantee you that someone has written it. It sounds crazy, but it happens. But like, a big question is why? Like, why? Why the hell would people write about this stuff? Fan fiction is for fans. Of course. Fan fiction's for fans. It started with Star Trek from the 1960s. The first Star Trek fanzine, which is basically like a fan magazine slash like self-published writings, contained fan fiction and others, and other kind of writings. But people followed that. People copied and pasted that kind of like style of writing, and then they just made it a whole genre. The fanzines were printed and mailed to other fans or sold at the science fiction conventions for like a small fee, people wanting to get their writings out there. And this is the part that's the best part of this history, is that it dominated by women, and it's consistently been dominated by women. In the 1960s, it was 83% of the Star Trek fan fiction was written by women, because the fan fiction started with Star Trek. And by the 1970s, 90% of fan fiction was written by females. 90%. This is kind of like, this is the thought process behind it as to why exactly females are 90% of the people that are writing it. It was thought that the need of a mostly female audience for fictional narratives that expand the boundaries of what media already presented was a reason why it all started. Would you look at that? Women writing more women into the narrative through fan fiction. Wow. And that's how fan fiction started. Wow. Would you believe that? Women wanting more women content, or women wanting more content that was driven towards them or writing themselves into the narrative. Boom. Women are amazing. But women in general don't get enough quality screen time. So the idea that women were taking it into their own hands is just beautiful to me. Fan fiction right now is now estimated to be 1/3 of all the content about books on the web. Also, mailing lists, fun fact, were established for fan fiction. It was as well as fan discussions, but mailing lists were created so that fan fiction authors could spread the good news, the good word, the Lord, the good word of erotica. That's how it all started. So I think that that's really funny. But two extremely, extremely popular erotic fan fiction, if you didn't already know this, 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James was written as a fan fiction of Twilight. Yes, Twilight. One of the best movie franchises in all of history. I will go to my deathbed thinking about this and saying this. It is one of the best franchises out there. Fight me on it. And another one popular called After, written by Anna Todd, which was a fan fiction about Harry Styles from One Direction. Yeah, it's crazy. That after the movie, so the fan fiction was developed in One Direction time, and then the movie was released in 2019. Apparently it wasn't very good. I did not watch it. I will have to get back to you on that one. But both of those fan fictions, we will be both reading a little bit of it, discussing towards the end of the show. So please, if you want to listen to that, stick around. I think you're going to like it. 50 Shades of Grey based on Twilight. Who would have freaking thought? So the reason why you might not be super familiar with it, if you're thinking to yourself, what the hell is fan fiction? It's because it's a predominantly younger crowd. Ages 13 to 18 years old, they find interest in these stories. My girlfriend actually told me that, when I was doing research for this episode, as a teen, the only fan fiction that she would read is Britannia, which, if you don't know what Britannia is, can you guess? Brittany and Santana from Glee. She was absolutely obsessed with their relationship and in her teen years. And that was the only thing that she really liked to read, was the smut fan fiction about Brittany and Santana from Glee. They're a gay couple. It's a gay couple from Glee. They're also super attractive and amazing, but I just think it's really funny because it's the only thing that she would read. They were partnered in the show as a couple and the fans went wild. It was erotic and dramatic and funny, and it was also super sad, apparently. Again, I have never read it. She still has not read it to me. If you're listening to this, I would like for you to read that to me before I go to bed. Thank you. Fanfiction's beautiful way to contribute to a beloved story. The genres of this fanfiction are even more wild. So I'm gonna list about 10 here, but I can guarantee you there's 15 or 17 more genres. But I'm gonna list the main ones here that don't overlap. Angst. Angst is number one. Angst is stories centered around characters who have brooding, sad, or in anguish feelings. Number two, alternative universe. It's exactly what it sounds like. Everyone lives in an AU, an alternative universe, might reflect an alternative universe where no characters have died and thus differ from the regular universe. So if it was a Scooby-Doo universe, maybe all of the characters would be women, but still living in the universe, but it would be all the characters are women. So that's an alternative universe. Crossover is the works of art, in the original works, featured from multiple different fandoms. So Scooby-Doo, I don't know why I'm so into Scooby-Doo right now. Scooby-Doo and The Night Before Christmas, that would be a crossover fan fiction and an erotic fan fiction crossover of Scooby-Doo and Nightmare Before Christmas, that would be something I would like to read. I'd like to see that very much so. Okay, dark fic, number 4. Dark fic are stories that are depressing more than the original. So they're the complete opposite of the original works. They're taken to another dramatic level, to more sad, more depressing, if you will. And also can be kind of disturbing. Physical and emotional abuse is a common theme in the dark fic. So obviously don't read that if that is something that is a trigger for you. Fix fic is number 5. It is the opposite of dark fic, where the stories rewrite the original context or the content and fix a character that they don't like or a plot line that they don't like. So, a fix fic, could be part of this Britannia, the Glee, the Santana and Brittany. It's kind of a fix fic. I mean, they had a good relationship, but they eventually ended it. The fix fic kept their relationship going on and further. So that could be kind of what that is. Number 6 is fluff or waff. Yeah, waff. Fluff or waff is a feel-good fanfiction designed to be happy, and that's it. No sad, no depressing, no dark themes, just happy, happy, happy. And waff is short for warm, fuzzy feelings. So that, I like that a lot. I actually kind of like that. Fusion or crossover is a bleeding of 2 settings and their casts. 2 settings, 2 casts, boom. Hurt and comfort is number 7, and this is putting a character intentionally through traumatic experiences in order for them to be comforted. Shipping is a romance focused on a relationship between 2 or more characters from the original fandom. In this, there are like other words that you can say with this. So slash focuses on homosexual pairings. Fem slash is girls and girls. I think that's kind of confusing because homosexual to me means like male or female, but I guess they want to get really specific with it, and slash is male pairings, fem slash is girl pairings. And friendshipping focuses on platonic relationships. There are so many more, so many more. And the last one is smut, porn / erotic, which is very explicit content. So when we get back from the break, I'm going to read, you heard it here first. I'm going to read some of the amazingly perfect smut erotic fan fiction, as well as some shipping fan fiction. A lot of famous fan fiction are not always smutty, but they're typically have little bits of eroticness in them, and they're also amazing. Some of them are like 400 chapters long, like lengths of books. Like these works of arts are just phenomenal, and I can't believe they're free. It blows my mind. It really does. These aren't just some little fan fictions about loving a character. They're genuinely real works of art, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And so when we get back from the break, I'm going to read you some of it. So get ready.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome back to the break. Absolutely so excited because I have some amazing erotic fan fiction to read to you. They're just the first 2 pages, I believe, and I really think you're gonna enjoy this audiobook experience. I really think you are. Okay. First one. Here we go. It's between Ron and Hermione. This erotic fan fiction is called Midnight. We're skipping a little bit to the middle part. right now. And the perspective is Hermione's perspective. Okay, good. So then what are you doing here, Hermione? It's bloody hell. It's the middle of the night. I'm aware of the time, Ron, I answered hotly and rolled my eyes. I couldn't sleep. That was the reason, was it not? I could still feel his warm skin and then his smell, and it all seems to have wiped my memory. Yeah, same here, he said with a nod. I keep thinking about the tomorrow. It's going to be extremely dangerous. I agree, nodding along with him as I hug myself around the middle, trying desperately not to think about that too hard, and about the fact that I'm with Ron, alone in his bed at midnight. Oh, Merlin, help me. Not only that, but what about when Harry gets here? And we have to leave to find these Horcruxes. Ron started pacing, and although our conversation was serious, my traitorous mind couldn't help notice the way his bicep flexed when he raised his hand to scratch his chin, and the ginger hairs around his navel. We're nowhere near ready, are we? I realized he was staring, waiting for an answer to a question that I hadn't realized he had asked. And I shook my head to clear it. I'm sorry, what? Are you sure you're okay? He asked and came closer, peering into my face. You look a bit peaky. I'm fine, I say a bit too loudly, making Ron flinch and back away from me. Sorry, I'm just restless and worried is all. It's all right. We're all tense, yeah? Ron said as he picked up a red and brown striped shirt from a pile of clothes on the floor and pulled it on. I stifled a groan, mourning the loss of his bare torso, and I briefly wondered just how much control I could possibly have left. He walked to the door and listened before shaking his head to let me know everyone was still asleep. Thank goodness. Don't want to wake anyone. Ron muttered as he closed the door. The air suddenly felt thicker and hotter. I just knew it wasn't all in my head, which both enthralled and petrified me at the same time. Without the candlelight from the hallway illuminating the room, I could barely make him out. All I could see is his outline coming closer. I backed up only for his desk to stop me from going further. I huffed and he chuckled as he touched his left hand to my right elbow, then leaned in closer. I could smell him again. I trembled as his chest slid against mine, and I remembered that I wasn't wearing a bra, having left without my dressing gown. His eyebrow twitched, just slightly, as his throat made a sound as he swallowed thickly before looking up from my chest to my face. I felt a generous amount of smugness at the thought of making him feel even a tiny amount of what he's put me through. Then he looked down at my lips. I bit back a moan and closed my eyes, my heart skipping. Then he said quietly, his voice closer to my ear, I'm just gonna... I felt the pressure of his tall frame on mine, making me lean back, my bum pushing his desk chair into the desk, making a low grinding noise as it moved across the wood. What are you doing? I stuttered and cleared my throat, fighting for every breath to remain collected and unfazed. He blinked down at me, and with the lack of distance between us, I could feel his heartbeat climbing. I'm getting my wand, he said as if it was obvious, but his heart and his hitch and his voice gave him away. He was as nervous as I was, but seemed to have worked something out in his head that was fueling him in initiating this contact between us. Ron searched for his wand with his right hand, while his left hand steadied himself on the back of the chair to my right, his thumb resting against my hip. He had effectively boxed me in and didn't dare move an inch, waiting to see what he would do next. I knew that something positively monumental was about to happen, even if I had to make it happen myself. He retrieved his wand and stepped back, but only enough so that I no longer felt his body, but still felt his breath on my forehead, then on my lashes. When I tilted my head back to look at him, he muttered a silencing and locking spell at the door, lighting the room with his wand. Oh my god, I just got so sweaty. I'm so sorry. That was so hot. Excuse me. Back to the story. In this new light, I saw him staring at my face, studying my reaction. Something clicked in my brain, and I remembered why I came upstairs. Why do you keep doing that? I asked, my curiosity taking over. His gaze stuttered, and he blinked as if waking up, then looked sideways guiltily, if I wasn't mistaken, especially when he started to rub his hand over the side of his neck. Doing what? I'm not doing anything, Ron said, then shrugged as if I was making things up. He took another step back, and I could finally breathe, I'll bet not quite as normally as I would have had he not been standing a foot away from me. I wanted to scold him for lying because he had to know what he was doing to me. It had to be a purpose. All those long stares and unnecessary touches, and then with his body all but crushing mine. How could he stand there and deny everything? I opened my mouth to speak, but then promptly closed it. Perhaps he didn't mean anything by it. Perhaps we were only getting closer as friends, and I was misinterpreting everything in an attempt to see something there that really wasn't. And I was just about to spill everything, risk it all, my feelings, my friendship, my sanity, and all to accuse him of flirting with me. He would think I went mental. Oh my god, that's hot. Ooh, I love that. I absolutely love that. I would read this over and over and over again. I would read this aloud. I would put this in a podcast over and over and over again. I gotta get a drink of water. Oh my god. I gotta get a drink of water. Okay, but this next one is even juicier, even hotter. Woo! The next one, is from the amazing Gilmore Girls. It's Rory and Paris. A queer moment for all my queers out there. God, I love queer erotic fan fiction. This one isn't a crossover. It's just Rory from Gilmore Girls and Paris, her enemy. Ooh. But it's really well written. I'm just gonna get into it. It's titled Spring Break. Rory Gilmore and Paris Geller weren't sure when they ended up back in their room, and as far as Hal was concerned, they didn't care. The room was dark, curtains down. Noises of various parties could be heard outside, but inside the room was almost eerily quiet. Paris pressed her lips to Rory's. She never actually kissed another woman, but it was nice. She could feel the heat rise in her cheeks as her hand wandered the brunette's slim body. Rory made a small noise, opening her eyes and revealing crystalline blue orbs. Paris, what are we doing? The blonde sighed. It's spring break, Rory. I'm sure plenty of people will do this and regret it later on, but I don't care. This was your idea, wasn't it? Go out and get the spring break experience. She then lowered her head, kissing and nibbling at Rory's neck and collarbones. Well, yeah, but I didn't think I meant going this far. You're with Asher anyways, aren't you? Rory replied, wanting to push Paris off, but not doing so. She couldn't deny that Paris knew what she was doing. Rory, on the other hand, had never had sex. Sure, she'd wanted to with Jess, but another woman was different. It was something she had never even considered. It frightened her. But that was also quite exhilarating. He's a man. Honestly, if he found out about you and me, his only complaint would be the fact that we didn't film it or let him watch, Paris responded, pushing Rory's loose shirt down and exposing her clothed breast. God, why are you wearing so many layers? Isn't spring break about wearing less? Shush you, Rory shot back, rolling her eyes. Instead of saying much more, She laid back, letting Paris take full control. She knew she couldn't be any of help. Paris grew quiet, her slender hands massaging Rory's breasts as she continued kissing and biting her collarbones. Rory bit her bottom lip softly, gripping the sheets as she was unsure what to do with her hands. She felt like she needed to say something or moan, but the only thing running through her mind was the fact that it was Paris Geller, of all people. Losing her virginity to her old enemy had never crossed her mind. But she knew she liked what was happening. The feeling of Paris's hands on her breasts was lovely. Her body felt warm, yet goosebumps made their way across her skin. It was a strange feeling, but not unwelcome. The blonde pulled Rory's spaghetti straps down her arms, along with her bra, exposing small breasts topped with pert nipples. Paris didn't hesitate in latching her mouth on one of them, while fingers lightly squeezed and pulled at the other. Rory's mouth fell open slightly as a pleasured sensation washed over her. She felt Paris's tongue flick her nipple before it was clenched in between her teeth softly. As Paris continued working her nipples, Rory couldn't help the small sounds that escaped her lips. Paris's hands moved downward, traveling over Rory's partially clothed body before moving up her skirt. The tip of her index finger trailed between Rory's lips. She was pleasantly surprised at how wet the brunette was. It meant she was doing something right, and Paris loved doing things right. That is the best thing I've ever read. That is exquisite. It is getting hot in here. It really is. It just makes me love having a girlfriend. Honestly, that is just amazing. This one was written by Lennox. I just love fan fiction, and it's free. It's absolutely free. I also forgot to mention the Midnight was written by Jess with one S. That's literally what it's called, Jess with the one S. And you can find it on fanfic.net or fanfiction.net or Wattpad, wattpad.com. You can find it literally anywhere because it's amazing, because it's one, people are so obsessed with this. People are so obsessed with this erotic series that you wouldn't think would happen, but it happens, and it's exquisite because it's free and you get to listen to it. Sorry, you get to read it. I get to tell you about it and you get to listen to it. And this is also free. I'm honestly astonished. I'm going to get some water to quench my thirst because that was very intoxicating. Let's go on a break. Huh? Let's go on a break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
How's everyone doing? Hope everyone enjoyed the break that you had with your thirsty asses. Did you get a drink of water? Because don't tell me that you guys didn't think that was hot, because that's hot. That was amazing. At the end of the show, I'm going to get even weirder. with the topics for fan fiction, and one of them involves Jesus and Hitler together. Yes, I said that correct. People write fan fiction about this stuff. It is just incredible. In this segment, we're going to be talking about the current fan fiction that has been turned into movies and the popular fan fiction that you know, like 50 Shades of Grey and after, like I had mentioned before. We all know 50 Shades of Grey and how it's BDSM. A lot of people don't think that it's BDSM because it is manipulative and not very BDSM, honestly. That's just my opinion. But it's a fan fiction written off of Twilight. Twilight in and of itself is kind of like it's got its problems. The main character, Edward, who, if you don't know what Twilight's about, vampires, a girl who's, you know, into that kind of stuff. He's kind of controlling. I will say that. So bringing that into like 50 Shades of Grey, it makes a lot of sense why people would think it's problematic. I can agree. They're just adding sex to it. They're adding like hardcore BDSM, which again, I don't think it's BDSM. I just think it's manipulation. I think it's kind of coercion. Anyways, E.L. James is the most commercially successful fan fiction author of all time. That is who wrote 50 Shades of Grey. After removing references to Twilight from Master of the Universe, which was 50 Shades of Grey, which is 50 Shades of Grey. It's just the original 50 Shades of Grey. She, you know, changed the title to 50 Shades of Grey from Master of the Universe, changed the names from Edward to Bella to Christian and Anastasia. A practice known as filing off the serial numbers. That's what the practice is called, is switching up the names. E.L. James published the renowned 50 Shades of Grey, and she renamed it to 50 Shades of Grey. James has sold over 70 million copies worldwide, including print, ebooks, and audiobooks. In 2013, Forbes named E.L. James the highest paid author in the world, with 95 million in earnings, thanks to her massive book sales and 7-figure paycheck for her first movie adaptation. She states, "I just sat on my sofa and just read them and read them and read them," about the Twilight series, James told ABC back in 2012, referring to the Twilight series books. "I was just inspired by Stephenie Meyer. She just kind of flipped a switch in my head." Since its mainstream release in 2012, 50 Shades has sold over 125 million copies worldwide and launched an entire genre known as mommy porn. Yeah, mommy porn. It has been translated into 52 different languages, and the long-awaited film adaptation, which premiered on Valentine's Day, raked in $94 million on its opening weekend. A President's Day record. So here's kind of what it sounds like, what the fan fiction sounds like. The doors open, and I hurry in, desperate to escape. I really need to get out of here. I turn to look at him, and he's leaning against the doorway, beside the lift, one hand on the wall. He really is very good looking. It's distracting. His burning green eyes gaze at me. "Isabella," he says, as the farewell. "Edward," I reply, and mercifully, the doors close. And in 50 Shades of Grey, they just remove the names. Isabella and Edward added Anastasia and Christian. Many readers deemed James' story too provocative for fanfiction.net. However, she was forced to remove some of them off the site. She took it down and thought, "I'd always wanted to write. I've got a couple unpublished novels here," James' agent told the LA Times. "I will rewrite this thing and create these iconic characters, Christian and Anna. It's one of the most successful fan fictions, and it's based on another extremely successful book series. I mean, women did that. Stephenie Meyers and E.L. James, come on. I'm so proud of us." But there's a lot of controversy that runs through this. The idea that fan fiction turned into a movie is extremely similar to Twilight, and that's problematic. Not only because it was based on Twilight, but because of a lot of the characters had similar standings with the two characters. It's between a lion, Christian, and a lamb, Anastasia. A similar secret that they have. A similar secret that they are trying to keep. But people think it's just a knockoff Twilight and shouldn't have been allowed to make money. I personally liked the movie 50 Shades of Grey. I didn't like the acting. I liked the idea of it. I liked the idea that they were shining light onto the BDSM community, but it really wasn't that much of a BDSM, more manipulative and coercion. When I found out that it was also based on Twilight, I had to check that. I had to rethink that. I was like, I'm sorry, no. What? A fan fiction written about Twilight, my favorite movie series, is now a erotic fan fiction then turned into a movie? BDSM? What? Couldn't be. Absolutely couldn't be. It is. It absolutely is. And I just remember I remember being in high school and then passing around this book. And I was like, what is this book? And people were like, oh, you haven't heard 50 Shades of Grey? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? What is this book? What? And they're like, it's erotic. And I was like, no. I don't read erotic, okay? I don't do that. But also I was like, can I read some of it? The teachers were literally having to confiscate the books. They had to confiscate the books and take them back because so many students were reading them on their regular break. And it's a smut book. It is a absolute smut book. At least when I was reading smut, I wasn't reading it at school. Hello. But I also did want to read it, I was both jealous, envious, and also very curious, and also hated them because I wanted to read it, but I know my mind wouldn't let me because of the controversy that was behind it. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to read that. But also I kind of do want to read it. I just remember it being this huge thing in high school, that everyone would just pass around this book and just read it, which I thought was really funny because it's like an all-girl school passing around a 50 Shades of Grey book. Come on. That has to be a joke somewhere. All right, the next fan fiction is called After, written by Anna Todd. It was released on Wattpad and fanfiction.net and was inspired by the fandom of One Direction for her novel. She was inspired by all of the fans writing all kinds of fan fiction, erotic and not erotic, behind One Direction. Amazing. It's about a young girl that falls in love with a British rebel heartthrob. Very easy to get. Very easy to understand. It was recently turned into a movie in 2019, which is crazy, but a lot of people didn't like it because of its origins. A lot of people found problems with it. It's based on a series of books that Anna Todd first published as Harry Styles fanfiction, which is a genre often written by a fan of a particular movie or television series in which the characters already exist in the author's plot. 50% of the work was already done for them. However, the argument here is that people are not fictional characters. If one rewrites a character's ending, it's fine, because it's a character. But fictionalizing real people is not that great. And when it's turned into a movie with the life of that real human, it could be even more problematic. How much liberty do you have over someone's life that's not falsifying information? A quote from an online article from the Harvard Crimson titled, "After isn't a bad movie, but that is far from the only problem." That's the article title. Written by Catherine B. Klein, she states, many fans of the singer have urged others in their commentary not to support the film, arguing that it will cloud others' perception of this beloved star. And while so many of their tweets may sound juvenile, they actually hit the nail on the head, which is more than can be said about the author herself. When asked about her story's origins and the complexity of portraying a character who is widely known to be more than inspired by a genuine person, Harry Styles, Todd said, "I love Harry Styles just as much as anyone. and I would never do anything that would hurt his feelings. Her admiration for Harry Styles isn't the point. It's not the point. It's the risk isn't in hurting his feelings. The risk is that others will see a character clearly based on a real person and associate them with negative, damaging actions of the character with him, despite the fact that they don't even portray, or they don't even propose to be based on factual information. End quote. Kind of butchered that, but you get the gist of that. So, whereas Twilight was harmless in the way that it was based on a fanfiction series, yes, similar, but not enough for the book deal to not happen, and not enough for her to make millions off the movie, but After, based on Harry Styles' life himself, can leave people with a bad taste in their mouths about fanfiction. It's an actual person's life that you are taking creative liberty with the fans. And with that, fans and critics alike are not very fond of it. It's every fanfictioner's dream to get an actual book deal, and possibly even a movie deal for their work. But when their work is in fact based on others' work, is that fair? Do you think it's ethical? I personally think that 50 Shades of Grey is fine. She changed the names, changed it up a little bit, and moved on. However, I think After is problematic in some ways because of the way it's based on a person's life. Yes, Harry Styles does give some part of himself away when he's in the public eye. And yes, the movie didn't mention him in specific, but it's based on someone's life that a lot of fans and even Harry himself are not too keen on. So what do you think? Is it ethical? Is it fair? Let's take a break. It's a lot to think about. After the break, we're going to get into the weird side of erotic fan fiction. And yes, Jesus and Hitler are in a story together. Please stay tuned.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. So, where we left off, we talked about fan fiction, we talked about how it can be erotic, what are the different genres of fan fiction, a little history. We also read some of the best erotic fan fiction online and talked about the 2 fanfics that actually got turned into movies, and then the negative aspects behind them. So, let's get into the weirdest crossover fan fiction that are erotic. And yes, they are bizarre. And yes, I'm going to read some of them to you right now. The one I thought was so bizarre, awful, weird, yet I was intrigued, is a story called Jesus, Trump, Hitler. Love equals love. Written by the user UpLikeTrump 212121. Yep. Yes, that's exactly what it is. So let's get into it. And I'm really scared. All right. Here goes nothing. Donald. The paparazzi screamed after me as I ran through the aisles of the Jewel Oscar. I zigzagged between good stands and the aisles of food as fast as my large body allowed me to. But it was no use. They found me. Mr. Trump, a beautiful news lady called. I licked my lips and ran my fingers through what was left of my light hair. Yes, darling? I answered sweetly. This chick was gorgeous, 10 out of 10, would smash. I'm talking Victoria's Secret body, long blonde hair, big blue eyes, the works. "I'd like to ask you a few questions for my magazine," she replied, flashing a smile. "Oh, what's the name of your magazine?" I asked, getting a little bit closer. "World's Hottest Politicians." Yeah, I definitely belonged in that magazine. "Ask away," I said, smiling. I took a seat on the ground, right in front of the poultry section. Gorgeous news lady sat in front of me, her legs spread apart in front of her. Or my eyes traveled up to her long legs into, "Who's your inspiration and your role model?" she asked, pulling my eyes back to her gorgeous face. Why couldn't my wife look like this? "Adolf Hitler," I answered. "I want to be as great as that man, as a man as he was. I have the same dream as him. We both wanted to make this country great again." Hitler wanted to make Germany great. "Well, somewhere near there," she said. "Whatever, same difference," I replied and went back to checking her out. My eyes finally made to her thighs and her bright red panties between those thighs. She shifted her body and her mouth dropped in horror. This gorgeous human had a little surprise for any guy who fell for her, a little package for them to open at night. She had a penis. "I gotta go," I said quickly, standing up. She quickly stood up and pressed herself against me, her package dinging into my thigh. "Isn't there anything I can do to make you stay?" She asked seductively. "Nope, bye," I screamed as I broke free from her hold, but she swiftly pulled me back. "Wait," she screamed in my face. I stood there in horror as she brought her hands up to her face and grabbed her cheeks, slowly pulling her skin off. There was a new face in its place. "OMG," I gasped. It was Hitler. "OMG, Hitler, Adolf Hitler, Dolph, my role model," I cried as I pulled him into a hug. Yes, that is me," Hitler said in an extremely Germanic accent. He pushed me off him and held me at an arm's distance. "Wait a minute," I said with a stupid smile. "Aren't you supposed to be dead?" I poked his nose and giggled like a little schoolgirl. "Yes, but I was resurrected by your love for me," Hitler replied, fingering his elegant mustache. My eyes widened in surprise. "OMG, seriously?" I yelled. He quickly covered my mouth with his hand, silencing me. "Night. I was brought back by Jesus, not your love. That's stupid." He half laughed, half screamed. "Oh," my smile dropped. I was now depressed. "Chillax, man." I shook with anger. "No, Hitler, I will not chillax. Font, come in here. Get me all OMG, and then mock me," I yelled at him. "I wish you were never brought back." Just as those words left my mouth, Hitler looked at me with a dark look. I backed up slowly as he approached me. A darkness clouded his eyes. "Hey, man, I didn't mean it," I stuttered. He continued to approach. My back hit a brick wall that seemed to appear out of nowhere. He pushed himself up against me. His natural sauerkraut scent became an aroma around us. "All right, guys, break it up, Jesus said, suddenly appearing between us, pushing us apart. I let out a breath and stared at the ground. "Now is the time," Hitler said. "The time for what?" I asked nervously. "You'll see." Suddenly, a bag was thrown over my head and someone shoved me forward. I lost my balance and fell to my knees. Two strong, hairy arms lifted me up on my feet and pushed me forward. "Step up," Hitler, smoothly, gravely voice commanded. "Yes, Daddy," I whimpered as I took a step up. "Oh, God, I'm sorry." "What?" he asked. "Nothing." "Nothing," I said as I stepped into what seemed like a car. "Sit," Jesus' heavenly voice ordered. I did as I was told. "Tupac, step on it," Jesus said. "Tupac? Isn't he dead? I asked. Wasn't I dead? Hitler asked. I shut my mouth. Obviously nothing as it used to be anymore. So yeah, that's that. That was bizarre. That was so messed up. And erotic and kind of hot in so many different ways. I'm just baffled at the amount of talent that some people really have to think about these kind of stories. It's also multiple pages long, by the way. Multiple pages long. And it also has like over 50,000 reads. Let me know if you want me to read part 2. All right, this next one. I have collected myself. I am continuing to collect myself as we speak. Next one is the funniest thing that you'll ever hear. And I'm so sorry for violating your ears once more. It is Ratatouille, the movie Ratatouille, Remy and Linguini. The romance between the two, the rat and the man. Oh, God. Why did I choose this? I don't know. You know, I asked a bunch of people if they would send stuff to me that they thought was super weird, and this was one of the things that people just really enjoyed listening to, was the romance between Remy and Linguini from Ratatouille. And if you don't know what Ratatouille is, please watch it. It's amazing. It's an amazing, amazing movie by Pixar. But, let's get into it. So this one also has a crap ton of reads. This one has, I think, about 50,000. It's called A New Start. And it is in parentheses, it's smut. So there will be some stuff that I will be bleeping out because it is smut. And it's between it's between their love. And that's hard. That's really, I could have chosen any other thing to read, but I guess I really wanted this one. Remy, Linguini moaned to his friend, who was crawling around in his hair. He has wanted to ask for ages now, but he had never been able to work up the courage until now. Yes, Linguini? Remy asked his best friend, letting go of his hair to listen to him. He was oblivious to his friend's feelings. I want to tell you something that will possibly ruin our entire friendship, Linguini said as he closed the pantry door, locking them both inside. Remy, now completely focused on his friend, jumped off Linguini's head straight into a loaf of bread and turned his entire attention to him. You know how you can control me by pulling my hair? Linguini looked away, face drenched in sweat and red as a tomato. Remy liked where this was going. Well, that kind of turns me on, and I was wondering. Remy listened to his homie with anticipation. What is it? This story says homie. His blood boiling. Only just realizing his own feelings for Linguini. What other hairs you'd like to get pulled? Oh no. Remy's tail stood stiff as he jumped with excitement, while Linguini's face was redder than Satan's knob, complimenting his ginger hair. Oh, hell yeah. I've always loved you, Linguini. Remy could no longer contain his excitement, swiftly jumping on Linguini's shirt and crawling into his bare chest. Linguini squirmed with pleasure as Remy scurried around his flat chest and nibbled on his nipples. Cheekily, Remy smirked to himself after finding Linguini's belly button. Oh god. That went on for a minute. Linguini danced and wriggled around the pantry and knocking down various food items while Remy sucked his belly lint. Jesus Christ. Until he found Linguini's pubes. Curly strands of orange hair boldly standing out on his pale skin. Remy was delighted. These are the hairs that Linguini wanted him to pull on. He threw his tiny little rat fist down with them, grabbing clumps of Linguini's happy trail in his dirty rat hands. Oh no. And pulled with all his might. Linguini squealed as he jumped and danced at Remy's hands, who now controlled and played his entire body. Ah, yes, Remy baby. Linguini screamed in pleasure, unbeknownst to how the real fun is nowhere near starting. Remy let go of the clumps of his ginger luxury, much to Linguini's dismay. But before Linguini could protest, Remy grabbed them once again, pulling them in a way that thrusted Linguini into a bent over forward position he could not fight. As his face hit loaves of bread, hands now clamped on the side shelves, Linguini waited in anticipation for what was coming next. Remy pulled the pubes one last time before tying them together so Linguini could not move. Panic began to fill Linguini as he knew what was coming. His blood was boiling. He knew. Remy sat back to the bottom of his boxers, now covered head to toe. Nope. You know what? That's why I'm stopping. I am stopping it there. I do not like this anymore. I don't like this. Oh, God. So that's fun. That's really fun. That is where I'm going to end this. On that note, on Linguini and Remy finding their love for each other. Oh, God. Oh, no. Okay. So that's great. The very interesting fan fiction erotic episode. I hope you like it. And if you don't, I get it. I 100% get it. There's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to unpack there. Make sure you like and subscribe to the GSMC Podcast Network on Facebook and Twitter. Sorry for harassing your ears. Let me know if you like this. And if you didn't, I get it. I hope you have a good night after reading this. After listening to it, I should say. I hope you have a good night. Until next time. Goodbye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.